Yeah, welcome back to ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. This is Community Matters. Today we're going to talk about studying communications at Manoa. What future can there be in that? With Haider Rifaat, who was a student there. In fact, let me go further. He's an entertainment journalist. He's a master's student in communication at Manoa. He's a graduate degree fellow at the East West Center. He's going to have to clarify some of these things. That was a couple of years ago. He's a features writer for OK Pakistan, the international edition of OK Magazine, and a contributing writer to Dawn Images, DAWN Images, and Flanelle magazine. And we want to know more about that. Lots more, Haider. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Haider.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jay.
So let's talk about what I did not read, and that is your production of podcasts and video and all things video and audio and whatnot. Let's move on from my introduction and talk about your real world. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So building on what you already introduced me as an entertainment journalist, I've been writing for the international press as well as the local press back in Pakistan, because I am from Pakistan, since from 2013, and I've been writing ever since. So most of my writings focus on entertainment-focused issues. So anything that's affecting the entertainment industry at large. I tend to focus on that, and I get to interview celebrities, directors, producers, writers, and I get to bring forth a perspective that's very nuanced in terms of not just asking superficial questions, but also just getting to cutting straight to the chase when it comes to what is affecting the entertainment industry, whether it's nepotism, whether it's poor scripts, whether it's repetitive storylines. Especially in the context of Pakistan, because we have certain television shows and certain films that victimize women and that want to show these kind of stereotypical images. So I'm trying to change that as an entertainment journalist by having these constructive conversations with people from the entertainment industry who can really change the dynamic of how the entertainment industry is functioning. So hopefully my interviews can inspire these filmmakers and producers to kind of like broaden their horizons, broaden their perspectives, and shift the narrative in the entertainment industry. Apart from that, I have been headlining my own YouTube talk show, which is Pakistan's first. It is the Haider Rifaat Show. It's currently in its 8th season, and the 8th season is titled Specials because it comprises of periodic interviews with special guests. So I had Arfa Saida Zehra, who was my first guest from Pakistan. She's an Urdu language expert. She's a scholar. She also studied at the East West Center, where I'm currently at. It's in its 8th season. I'm really happy that it's going well. And I'm also doing a podcast for the University of Hawaiʻi Cancer Center, which is called Cancer Answers. And it's kind of like helps to reduce the burden of cancer in Hawaii and the Pacific. So I get to interact with a lot of Cancer Center researchers who are working behind the scenes, with their research studies, trying to really help cancer patients in Hawaii and the Pacific, with their treatment, with their clinical trials. So those are really important conversations to have, because it can really affect lives and also impact lives in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of questions for you. Hard Talk on BBC, you know that program? Mm-hmm. It's a very good program, and your comment about jumping right in, getting right to the core of the matter, that appeals to me. I think that's good journalism, and certainly it's entertainment in its own way. And I really like the program on BBC. So let's jump in with you. Okay, you're a student, am I right? How do you have the time to do this? This sounds very time consuming, because I know that if you want to recruit somebody to be on your show, you have to find them and talk to them and and make records of the conversations and know what you're going to discuss and get his essential contacts and, structure it. It's not so easy. That's time consuming. How do you do that at the same time you're a student? Where did I miss? What did I miss here?
I think it's all about passion and all about dedicating your time and efforts into doing what you really want to do. I've always been passionate about storytelling, be it in the form of performing arts or be it in written form, or also in the form of my talk show and writing. But I've always been passionate about that. So when you're passionate about something, I think you can always take out time, no matter what you're doing. But thankfully, I manage my priorities well. So I have a specific time for example, during the weekends when I'm not working or studying, I would contact people well in advance during the week and then record the shows during the weekend. So that's kind of like how I prioritize my show, my writings. So it's pretty, it gets hectic, but I feel like when you're determined, when you're passionate about something, you bring it to life.
Sounds like you're passionate about a lot of things. On the one hand, cancer answers, on the other hand, international geopolitics. Gee whiz, they're not the same. I want to go on record now and tell you they're not the same. So what I hear you saying is you're passionate about all these subjects, but when you get to the fundamental question, you must be passionate about some common denominator. What is the common denominator that you're passionate about?
I feel like keeping the conversation going and keeping the conversation unique is really my strategy. It has always been that. I don't want to be some interviewer who is asking the same questions. I want to be someone who's asking the right questions and different questions. And I feel like in journalism right now, what I've really been seeing is in mainstream media, we're not asking the right questions. We're kind of like beating around the bush and not getting to the gist of it. And I also don't want to be somebody who makes things very much biased, because your bias tends to reflect in your reporting in journalism. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow that path. So I really want to keep a neutral stance and have a good constructive conversation, ask the right questions, and hit all the right areas, and hopefully and I've seen that too during my talk show that I've been doing on YouTube for 8 seasons. I started in 2016, and most of my conversations are not in line with the traditional Pakistani media, which is they're asking certain questions that are very much obvious and more intrusive, borders on celebrities' personal lives, which I tend to keep completely separate when I'm interviewing them. Because I feel like my job is not to dig deep into their personal lives, but talk about issues that are affecting the entertainment industry, more importantly, and also not to talk more about what they like, what they dislike, but more about keeping a conversation focused on a particular area of the entertainment industry, and maybe press them hard on certain areas that they wouldn't expect. So that's kind of like my trajectory as an entertainment journalist.
So I guess that would be professional issues, not personal issues.
Correct.
But when you say keep balanced and impartial, I suppose impartial is the word you use. We look at American politics and the traditional way of looking at it. The Edward R. Murrow way of looking at it was, okay, let's be balanced. Let's separate opinion from reporting and fact. But since the Trump administration has started, that's become a little more complicated because sometimes people say the most outrageous things. For example, Fox News and all the controversy right now about Fox News and whether the reporters believed what they were saying or not. How do you handle that in a world of alternate facts, in a world where some people are reporting things that are simply not true? Are you going to balance the truth with the untruth? How does a journalist or an entertainment reporter deal with that?
I feel like first and foremost, your politics as a journalist should not reflect in anything. So for example, if Fox News has certain reporters that have a certain bias, and obviously the channel also has a huge role to play in this because they have their set guidelines, their set policies that have these political biases that reflect. But on the other hand, you also have pro-Democrat channels like CNN that also have their biases reflected, that are anti Republican. So I feel like it's the trouble is on both sides, if I'm honest with you. The only issue is that I feel like as a journalist, your politics should not reflect. And unfortunately, that's something that we're seeing in the liberal media and the conservative media a lot. And that really does go against journalistic ethics. So I feel like that practice needs to be just thrown in the bin, because I feel like that's just doing a disservice to journalism. And in terms of facts, I feel like you cannot distort facts. Facts are facts. And even if you try to do that, inevitably it will unravel in the end. The truth will unravel in the end, because you're selecting certain pieces from factual evidence and you're distorting it and to create this alternative universe. And I feel like that goes against journalistic practice too. And eventually the truth will unravel in the end, because some person, even a viewer who is tuning into the program on Fox News or CNN might catch that and might say, hey, this is something that your channel reported, and it's casting doubt over the channel's legitimacy, and what's being reported on. So I feel like eventually the truth unravels, be it in the form of viewers or other investigative journalists who are sitting behind the scenes writing. So the truth will come out in the end.
How about a situation where another media is reporting badly, is not telling the truth? Do you see the obligation of a impartial reporter as calling that out?
I feel like this practice, I haven't seen it much, because I feel like although it is very much rampant, but I feel like I have not personally seen a channel where they're reporting misinformation so openly that it has not been condemned. But yeah, I feel like if a channel is misreporting or is spreading misinformation, the onus is on the channel to basically not get that kind of information out there to the public, because it's just dangerous. It's not right. It's based on wrong information. And I feel like no channel deserves to get airtime if they are spreading that kind of information. Who are the people who are running this channel? They are the ones who are calling the shots, and they should have some responsibility in terms of navigating through whatever content that they're putting on air. But I have not really seen a channel that has misreported so much that it hasn't been called out.
Whose job is it to call it out? Is it government? Is it an incursion on the First Amendment or freedom of speech, freedom of the press? Is it the competition? Is it the academic community? Is it the viewer or the reader? Whose job is it to point this out?
I mean, obviously, journalists do have a huge role to play in terms of calling out misinformation and distorted facts, but it's also, I feel like viewers many times are better journalists because they're the ones who are really correcting information. For certain YouTube clips that I've been seeing, I see the comment section below, and I'm seeing like all these viewers who are calling out the shots in terms of like, hey, this was misreported, this was not right, this was not accurate. And I feel like they're doing a better job as journalists, not being journalists. But I feel like journalism itself should not be limited to just reporting. If you see some misinformation on news channels anywhere else, it's the job of journalists to call that out. And if they're not doing it, they're probably not good journalists.
Mm. And so let's skip to the issue over Russia and Ukraine. You know, there's a lot of consternation in the world, at least the Western world, about what Modi is doing or not doing to support Ukraine. I don't know what the foreign policy of Pakistan is. I'm sure you do know, but we have a lot of people in this country, including people that I know, who are saying, let's not support Ukraine. Let's instead support Russia. Let's put aside our concerns about war crimes and atrocities. Let's seek a peace no matter what right now. Let's see if we can get them to make peace, even if it costs Ukraine its sovereignty. Okay, and so you could say there's a balance and an impartiality question there. But in fact, the liberal world order, of which I'm sure you've studied, depends on sovereignty. It depends on neighbors not invading neighbors. And so, what is the role of the press there? And I'm also interested in how the politics go in Pakistan these days, given what is happening in India.
Mhm. I do feel that the Russian and the Ukrainian issue is like really, really nuanced, and like it's not like, and obviously the perpetrators need to be blamed for that. But I feel like in Pakistan, I can only speak for my country, because in Pakistan we do have some really good journalists who are doing great work, whether it's in terms of filmmaking, storytelling. Like Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, she is doing some fantastic work as a two-time Oscar winner. Apart from that, she's really bringing forth the social evils in Pakistan's in Pakistani society. So I feel like she's doing a great job. Apart from that, I feel like there are many journalists, like I can name a few, who are doing a fantastic job. Meher Abbasi, who I've actually been supervised by in Dawn News, which is one of the leading channels in Pakistan. Then I do feel like Kashif Abbasi, who is an anchor person for ARY News, which is another great news channel in Pakistan. He's doing a great job. But I do feel like there are many journalists in Pakistan who also do follow their own biases, and that reflects in their questioning. For example, in Pakistan, there is a very anti-Imran Khan, and Imran Khan is, for the viewers who don't know, is the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, and he has been receiving a lot of flack, unnecessary flack for many things. But I feel like journalists have turned against him, and they're trying to tarnish his image, because we have a corrupt leader in power again, who is Shehbaz Sharif. He is the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and his brother was leading this position before he assumed office. So I feel like the corrupt leaders are back in power again in Pakistan. And unfortunately, the right person, Imran Khan, who was the saving grace of Pakistan, although he had his own shortcomings, he is getting really bad coverage, biased coverage in Pakistan, which I feel is not good journalistic practice. It's not.
Does your adherence to the First Amendment to freedom of speech, your desire to speak out, speak truth to power, and all that, affect your ability to recruit guests, affect your ability to have good relations with the government, the Sharif government, for example, in Pakistan? Where do you stand on all of that? Can you go back? Can your family be comfortable?
I mean, the First Amendment rights, yeah, I agree with you. Like the freedom of expression, and you have the right to say what you feel. But I also feel like if you speak the truth nowadays, I feel like in journalistic practice, it's more about spreading lies and misinformation. But I feel like you feel very unease telling the truth nowadays. It's more about, you feel more comfortable lying than telling the truth. So I feel like that has become the norm in Pakistani media, and also I've seen that around the world, because I feel like Al Jazeera is doing a great job in terms of calling a spade, and I feel like they deserve credit where it's due. But in Pakistan specifically, I'll be talking about this because there are certain biases in politics that reflect in the kind of questioning that journalists do on their news programs, and that is just not in line with in line with journalistic ethics. And I feel like, as I was mentioning earlier, your personal biases, should not reflect in journalism. And once you do that, that's where you feel like your journalistic integrity comes into question, because the whole point of journalism is to tell the truth, to report on facts, not to give your personal opinion. And I think that's where you draw the line as a journalist between facts and personal opinion.
Well, it's certainly changed over the last few years because social media is so powerful and reaches so many people. So that if you report something one way or the other, whether it's good reporting or not good reporting, you will be reaching millions, even billions of people on social media. It's tremendous responsibility. And, just to the point you made earlier, it's not just the professional journalist. It's the citizen journalists. It's the people who make the comments, the people who speak out whenever they get a chance, and their tweets or their comments can reach the whole world and affect public policy, affect public sensibilities everywhere, affect history. So it's a very onerous, a very powerful platform that journalists have because of the electronics. Do you see yourself, Haider, as a citizen journalist, a professional journalist, or somebody who's on the way from one to the other?
I would say I'm all for the people. I'm a journalist. My job is to report on facts. I will not have my biases reflected in my line of questioning. I would interview my enemy. I would interview my friend. I would interview anybody. But I will not have my personal biases reflected in that interview, because that's not my job. My job is not to create propaganda for the sake of it. My job is to report what is right, report on facts, and also ask questions that I'm more curious about, because you're also speaking on behalf of the public to these people that you're interviewing. So I feel like that's something that our journalists should be doing all over the world. But yeah, sometimes I do, linking this back to my to the part of interviewing celebrities and entertainment industry overall, is that certain public relations PR agencies, they have their own agendas in terms of not asking these questions from these celebrities, because it's considered contentious, point of contention. But I feel like when PR gets in the way of, just like politics, when PR gets in the way of entertainment journalism, that's an issue. And I do struggle.
What happens if you're going to interview an entertainer, a celebrity, and the PR person says to you, Haider, we don't want you to ask about this, and we don't want you to ask about that, but we want you to ask about this. In fact, here's a bunch of questions. Or, Haider, can you tell us what the questions are so we can consult with our client before this, interview, to find out what you have in your mind, and therefore to counsel with the celebrity and help her properly answer your question. Well, how do you handle that if you want to screen out, the effect of the PR person?
Well, first of all, I will call them out for saying this, because I would just simply tell them that this is my job as a journalist to ask these questions. So I feel like it's a very important question to ask. And if I'm told to not ask this question, then I would probably just back off a bit and then let them consider my questions again, or I would reframe the question. It's all about it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. So framing the question in a manner that does not sound too intrusive or too direct for the celebrity. I feel like if you kind of like change your tone of questioning, or if you change the language of the question, but it has the same meaning, that can really get the answer from the receiving end. So I feel like I feel like that's something that I do still struggle with, because many PR agencies do have their hidden agendas in terms of not asking these questions, asking more superficial questions. But in the end, I do not go by the questions that they give me. I go by the questions that I make myself, because that's my job. That's not someone else's, because this is my interview. Yes, if they have a problem with the question, I can definitely maybe reframe it or remove it completely. Or mostly convincing on my part would be required for the PR agencies, if they can really go with the line of questioning that I'm aiming for. If not, then I can definitely reframe it, and
Well,
we
what
see.
about saying, no, I'm not going to interview this person? This is oppressive. This just stands in the way of journalism for me. And you can make these requests, but A, I'm not going to abide by them, and B, we'll interview someone else. Do you ever say that? I mean, that's very contentious, I know, but do you ever say that?
I have done that many times, actually, because I felt like this would get me, although it's a great opportunity sometimes for journalists too, that they get to interview these huge public figures. But at times when you feel like your heart and soul is being invested into something that you really want to ask, like these are the questions I really want to ask this person, but you cannot ask those questions, it defeats the purpose of journalism, and also defeats the purpose of what I'm passionate about. So I would definitely withdraw. But if there is a middle ground that we can find with the PR agencies involved, that's great. So that's why mostly I tend to keep my focus between the celebrity and myself, and not involve the PR agencies, because it gives that one-way dialogue instead of having a third party involved.
So again, are you a citizen journalist, a professional journalist, or are you on the road from one to the other?
I'm a storyteller. I'm a journalist, and I really want to bring truth to light, and that's my job. I would not call myself somebody who wants to do journalism for commercial purposes.
Hmm. Are you making money doing this?
Not really. I'm doing this because I'm passionate for it.
Okay. One great challenge of the arrangement you describe is recruiting people, especially celebrities and people who are, in the public eye, and who are powerful people who are surrounded with PR and money and fame and fortune, all that. How do you reach them? I mean, you're here. You're here in Hawaii. Some of the people you're talking about are half a world away. What do you do? Pick up the phone? You send them an email? How do you reach them so that they actually respond and agree to be interviewed?
Yeah, that's a good question. Normally, what I would do is I would reach them through email, because obviously I don't have time to call them up, and normally they're really far away from Hawaii. So what I would do is I would either engage with them over WhatsApp or over email, get their numbers, and hopefully if they respond, that's great. I've sent out so many emails to many people who didn't get back to me. So I feel like it's not always acceptance. There's a lot of rejection too. So it's not all lovey-dovey and flowers and cream. It's all about, getting making the effort and seeing things come to fruition for you. So I feel like you should keep trying, be consistent with what you want to do. And if you really feel passionate about something, it will definitely come back to you. So that's what I normally do, over emails, over WhatsApp. I just network a lot, and that's how things work.
Yeah, sure. I know how that works. I'm in the same place.
Yes.
So what do you want to do, Heather? Is this your career we're talking about? I mean, certainly it's consistent with your training, your experience, as I read at the head of the show. But is this going to be, is this already your occupation that you're committed to, like for a professional life?
Well, I'm already a journalist, so I feel like I've established myself as one over the years, and I've started writing when I was very young. I think I was about 18, 19 when I started writing. I'm 27 now. So I feel like I've done that a lot. I started from scratch, all on my own. And luckily, the MA degree in communication from the University of Hawaii at Manoa really helped me to kind of strengthen those skill sets, because communication is a broad term. It's not verbal communication, it's media communication, but the verbal communication is a part of it too. But I've had some really great professors. I've got to learn a lot about propaganda. I got to learn a lot about how media information is disseminated to the public through social media, the digital storytelling tools. So there's a lot that I got to learn as an MA student that really strengthened my journalistic practice even further, because even I'm a learner and I'm still continuing to learn. But hopefully I really do not want people to deviate from their focus, and not to lose focus, and also not to lose their journalistic principles, especially people who are part of this field. So the MA degree has helped a lot. I'm in my final semester right now, so it has really helped me further my skill sets in journalism.
We talk about social media. We talk about the evolution of the media, of the press, such as it is. And for the most part, I think we are seeing a kind of world flattening, if you will, because you could be here, you could be in New York, you could be anywhere in the world, assuming there was freedom of the press and nobody would come and haul you away. And you could do what you are doing anywhere. But you're here, and I would imagine you intend to stay here. Am I right? Is this a place where you could have a platform to do all the things you do on an ongoing basis? Is it possible? Is this the way it's going to work?
Well, that's the advantage of being a Pakistani. I can go back to my home country whenever I want. And then I've done that in the past too. Like during the summer, I go back, or during the winter breaks, I go back, schedule interviews beforehand over email, and line those interviews up and record them when I'm back home. But Hawaii definitely gives me an edge too, because I get to experience a different culture altogether, get to experience different people, the stories that they're sharing. And I feel like you don't have to be a big celebrity or a big person to have a great story. Great stories stem from people anywhere around the world. It can be you, it can be me, it can be any person who is on the street, has a very unique story to share. Unfortunately, we give so much precedence to celebrities because we rely on their celebrity power, which is wrong, just for commercial purposes. I feel like if you have the right titles, if you have the right description, if you have the right tools in telling a story, then I feel like that's the right direction to go in as a journalist. So I feel like yeah, so that has been my approach all the time. I tend to keep it that way, and it works.
Okay, Haider, we're out of time, I think. I wish it weren't so, because there's a lot of other questions. And I take your point about being curious and about coming up with questions that are based on, curiosity. And the last answer your interviewee gave you, I could do this with you all day long. And I think you could probably do it with me all day long. But right now we're out of time. And I hope to circle back with you and talk with you some more, and to try to include you in our lineup in one way or the other. It's been great to meet you, and I appreciate exactly what you're doing and what you aspire to. Thank you, Haider.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.